I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is Convo by Design, exploring the work of Philadelphia interior designer Glenna Stone, a very talented creator who said this, quote, "I think of design as a magical process where something that didn't exist suddenly does. And that's what I love about what I do. I love developing a complete design, a 360-degree vision that considers the intentions of the client, the architecture of the space, and all the while artfully combining scale, balance, proportion, texture, and hue in a way that marries beauty and lifestyle. Great design is about working into a space and every single time feeling one thing, this as it should be." Wow, right? All right, here we go. Glenna's bio reads like this. Inspired by her mother, an artist and teacher, Glenna developed her sense of color and composition at a young age. She's always had a passion for combining color, materials, and textures in an artful manner. Paralleling her creative side, Glenna embraced her strong technical skills and received a degree in engineering from Lehigh University. Upon graduation, she worked for Fortune 500 companies as a consultant and project manager in the consumer products industry. Magic and original thought. Two things you will find in the top tier of all design work. And you're about to hear from someone who's a master of that. And you will hear more from Glenna Stone right after this. I am incredibly proud of Convo by Design in year 10, and I'm equally proud of my partnership with Thermosol. They've been presenting partners of Convo by Design for 3 years now, and there is a certain amount of pride that comes with saying that the show is presented by the company that is the best in the world at what they do. Thermosol engineers the most exceptional smart shower products and steam shower systems worldwide for a few reasons. They were the first company to design, patent the technology here in the U.S. dating back to 1958. Thermosol, a U.S. brand, a U.S. manufacturer in Round Rock, Texas, employs an engineering team that designs, tests, and continuously refines the product. Their quality control team tests every single steam generator before it departs the factory. Who else does that? Nobody. I have had the pleasure of working with some world-class designers and architects who tell me, and you probably know this, that the idea of luxury has changed and continues to change, especially when clients want a spa-like bathroom. Steam is mandatory, or it's just not considered a luxury space. And if you want to add steam, you have one true option. It's Thermosol. And now, Thermosol, the industry leader in steam, bath equipment, and technology since 1958, is enhancing their already stellar family of products with new indoor and outdoor luxury saunas. Available in 3 design configurations, each sauna is handcrafted from clear Western red cedar or Nordic spruce, inspired by the brilliance of Northern European sauna technology and design. A luxury bathroom isn't luxury without steam. If you want luxury, you have one option. It's Thermosol. Check them out at thermosol.com and at Thermosol on the socials. I've often compared sort of my process to that of a designer, or at least some of the designers and architects that I've spoken with, the ones that I've really enjoyed speaking to. I have found that, like, if I put together a list of 30 questions, you're going to, or even 10, right? You'll look at those questions and you'll memorize the questions, and then I'll get like the patented answers.
Right.
This is not, it's so funny because
you're going to get the truth now.
Well, yes, but it's like design. It's like good design. I'm not asking you anything that you don't know. This is not a math test. I'm not trying to trick anyone. The fact of the matter is, and the big secret to this show is that I love design and architecture. Like, I love what you do. I just don't possess the talent to do it. So I figured the next best thing is, what am I really good at? And apparently I'm good at listening and talking. And listening is one of the things that you pride yourself on. And I'm curious, have you always been that way? Because I think it's a skill that it takes many time to learn. Have you always been like that?
I think I've always been a good listener, but I think it is a skill that you hone in on. I don't think I've always been probably really attuned to what active listening is, and being really present in a conversation. I think that that's so important in our field. And it's something that I'm always working on, whether it's our clients, our employees, our vendors. I think it's more than just listening to the words that they're saying. It's looking at their body language, how they're saying it, and kind of inferring information from, what they're saying and how they're saying it. That's like really kind of that active listening and kind of and that anticipation, getting to that level of like anticipation that you can kind of understand what they're saying without them actually saying it, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Isn't it interesting too that they don't teach active listening in design school?
There's a lot of things they don't teach in design school.
It's so true. It's so true. So backing up, how did you get here? What's the origin story?
Well, so let's see, my mother's an artist. She is an art teacher. She does pen and ink and watercolor. She always kind of had her own art business. Always very, very creative, very into kind of interior design on a DIY level, made all of our curtains, reupholstered things for us. And then my stepdad is a woodworker and, did lots of millwork and custom furniture in our house. That's kind of how I grew up. And my mother said, "You're good at math and science. Don't do anything creative. You'll never make any money." So I was like, okay. So she said, "Be an engineer. You're good at math and science." So that's what I did. I went to Lehigh for industrial engineering. Awesome education, loved it, and ended up graduating there and becoming a consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, working with Fortune 500 companies in their supply chain management. So very kind of manufacturing based, and ended up staying with one of my clients, Gillette, who was, one of my consulting clients. And then they offered me a full-time job. So I stayed there. We were living in Boston at the time. And it wasn't creative enough for me. It was just kind of like the typical corporate world. And it was great. I was super successful. I really loved it, but I just started taking classes, photography, cooking, just doing things at night. I mean, I was in my 20s, so I had a lot more free time, and ended up falling into a class at RISD, at Rhode Island School of Design and Interior Design. And it was just like light bulbs went off, because I am good at math and science. I love the technical, but I really crave the creative. And when I really kind of understood that interior design was not decorating, it was so much more. There was a really kind of like construction, project management aspect to it. I realized how much this was my calling. And so then I kept taking another class and another class. And then I took an AutoCAD class at Boston Architectural College. And finally I was like, I have to go back to school. My husband was kind of like, "Are you becoming a professional student?" I was doing all of these at night, taking these like 3-hour studio classes, driving down to Providence. And I was like, yeah, I think I've got to do this. So I ended up getting my master's here in Philadelphia at Drexel in interior architecture and design. So
that is absolutely fascinating. So tell me something. How does I have an engineering student in the family, so I'm very familiar with this. And I'm curious, how does that side of it, the math, science, the STEM side, inform your creative side? How do those two very distinct and different personalities work together?
Right. Well, I think, my background is really kind of manufacturing, supply chain management. It was about process and efficiencies. And that is something that I really bring to our firm. And it has really become the foundation of how I've like grown our business. It's been, it's so important. And I think having that corporate background and being able to understand that process is important, but it also isn't everything. I feel like when you're in a corporate world, sometimes things are over processed. There's so much red tape that it takes so long to do things. And that's also not efficient. So I think being able to kind of bridge that gap of like where we need to be efficient, where we need to have process and where we don't, and that's too much. And that's actually going to slow us down and cause us to be inefficient or take too much time to do something.
How does that play against the creative side of it?
Well, I think it enables the creative side, and the feedback that, we've had from our team and from people that have come from other firms is that it actually enables them to be more creative because their mind isn't filled with what's the next step, or okay, now that we have this, what do we do? We have such a well-defined process but it doesn't stifle the creativity. It actually enables the creativity because there's not confusion, or your mind isn't being filled with other questions. It really allows you to be creative. But at the end of the day, we do have deadlines, and we do have budgets, and we do have to meet our clients' needs and construction schedules. So, unfortunately, the creative, we always kind of say like the design stops when the design stops, right? Because you can continue designing and designing and designing and designing. And, at some point we have to put these things into effect. So, that's kind of where the process comes in.
It's funny. I'm probably misattributing the quote, and I'm paraphrasing anyway, but I think it was Picasso who said that he did 20,000 paintings and never finished a single one.
Right.
And it's an interesting idea, and it's an interesting concept, because when the design is done, the design is done. I guess, how do you know when it's done? I get the renderings, and is it done when the client likes it? And is that good for you? Does that satisfy you creatively? Because to your point, I have spoken to other creatives who say, I just do what the client wants, but at the same time, there has to be some level of fulfillment because you're doing something that is creative and does not previously exist before you get there.
Right. I mean, for me personally, and it's the design is done when I feel that it's complete. That doesn't mean we couldn't have the opportunity to continue designing or tweaking it. And yes, I want the client to be happy, but I feel like they hired us because of our portfolio, because of our work, because of our reputation. And it's my job to make sure that we fulfill that and do our work. And, even if the client, yes, the client has to be happy, but that doesn't define done. That defines that defines that we did our work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the project is complete or cohesive, because they don't see things the way we see things. That's why they hired us. They might not see that wall needs something, but it does, so, but it is tricky. Yeah. Cause I mean, we could keep designing forever. I feel like we could keep tweaking things and adding things and getting more samples, or just, tweaking certain things. But then we're going to miss our construction deadline or we're going to miss our furniture install.
But here's what I find so interesting about you, and I absolutely love this. I think that, and the reason I started doing this in the very beginning, I came from different, I was not you know what? I take that back. I am a professional student, so I get it. I'm taking another class now at MIT, so I totally get it. But in speaking with designers, I've come to learn, designers and architects, that there is no one right way of doing this. Mm-hmm. There are many incorrect ways of doing it. But when it comes to the right way to do it, there's a personality match, there's a process match. And that's kind of what I wanted to drill down on a little bit. And I love your engineering background, because you have, and I did a little research on your website, and you have an absolutely locked down process that was definitely crafted by an engineer. So, and it's not one that I've ever seen before. I've seen variations to certain degrees, but here's our process. It's a 6-step process. It's cut, dried, processed. It's there for you to provide a comprehensive look at our 5-phase design and construction process. Okay, that's step 1, right? And it goes all the way down to part 6, which is facilitates collaboration with your builder, contractor, and tradespeople during construction and installation, allowing us to deliver a tailored and beautiful crafted design. Here's why I think that that's so amazing. Because there are some clients that are just like, look, here's the budget, here's what I like, just get it done. There are others that are the complete opposite end of the spectrum who want to be involved in every step along the way. And then there's the spectrum from one end to the other. You have approached a certain side of the business where it's like, look, we have a process. It is well engineered. It is tested and true. And here's how we do it. And I would imagine that that makes a lot of clients feel very, very comfortable.
It does. I mean, our philosophy is we want to advocate for them. We want to be a partner with them in the project. And we want it to be enjoyable for them, but we want them to feel confident in the decision they made to hire us, and that we're going to hold their vision from our first conversation until we're, putting the final touches on their project. And as we're integrated into the project and working with the other design build professionals on the project, we're going to make sure that vision stays true.
And with that, I imagine it also takes a lot of the pressure off of the overall process, because it allows people to understand what's coming next, how to do this, and now they can just focus on the creative side of it.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And the nice thing about having a process or having it so well defined is that, listen, like, every project isn't the same. And are we so militant that we follow that process to every letter for every single project? Of course not. I mean, every project requires something new and unique and different and special. And having that process is kind of like the 80-20 rule. It's like, if we've got it, it's easier for us to handle some of the things that get thrown at us that are unexpected, or something that is unique on a project, because we have kind of the steps laid out, and we're able to, it allows us to be able to pivot and actually be more adaptable and be flexible, but not miss anything along the way.
What's really interesting to me too is how you kind of take this engineering, well constructed, crafted process, even to your blog. So you have a blog. Do you know that you're like one of the only designers that actually keeps up with your blog?
That's a compliment. Well, because we have a process for it.
Yes, exactly. But that's what's so like, if you go look at, if you just peruse designer websites, it is the funniest thing. Like, on social media, you'll see comments every 20 minutes or every, it's all the time. But you look at their blog and it's like the last entry was back in 2019.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Before the world shut down.
Yes. It's like and they're talking about how great it is to be out amongst friends, and you're at a restaurant and all these people. But yeah, then it just ended. It just stopped. And I do think that that's really interesting. And I wanted to ask you something that I might not have ordinarily asked you, but I love the engineering background. So I'm curious, your approach to, or your thoughts rather, on what's coming next and how you're using it. Are you using AI? Are you using ML? I mean, is machine learning something that you envision as part of your process, your internal process?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe that's how your blogs are being written. Maybe you're just
No,
giving
you're
just giving ChatGPT. It's like, okay, ChatGPT, give me a 5-paragraph blog post on Deco Off and Maison Objet. Tell me what you know,
right.
and then it'll give you. And add, by the way, add a few spelling errors and one punctuation error, so people think that I actually wrote it.
Now, if I could say, incorporate these pictures and here are my thoughts, and do it. No, we do write all of our own blogs. And I mean, it's a good question. Like, what role is AI going to have in the future? And, we haven't started using it in our firm, but it is, I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. I'm not a professional student anymore, but I am a lifelong learner, and constantly, taking classes, reading books, educating myself. And I mean, I think that is the next piece that we're going to have to figure out how, as designers, as design firms, as manufacturers, how does that piece integrate into our industry and what does that look like? And it's right now for me, it's a little too early to tell. I mean, I do think obviously some of the writing component is an area where I do think that it can probably happen fairly quickly. It's probably already happening to a degree with some firms, but it's not something we've incorporated yet.
It's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in media sales. And and by the way, this is so far off the subject of interior design, but I'm loving this. So as long as you're cool with it.
Yeah, but everything's related, I feel like anyway.
Well, so. It is. And I'll put a bow on it and draw the connection back, because I do think it's really interesting. So my friend in media sales, and I was his management team had asked them to start taking all of this data and inputting all of the data into a spreadsheet. And he didn't know why. And I basically explained to him, it's so that they can replace you with a machine. And he didn't understand what I was explaining to him until after I was done explaining to him. And then it was like the light bulb went on. I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. Because between artificial intelligence and machine learning, if you can come up with the average, the median, the mean, and put in all of these data points, then a machine can learn how to do it and give you reasonable projections. So as it relates to our business, I love what designers do. And there is no way for artificial intelligence or machine learning to do what really good designers do. Mm-hmm. It's not possible. However, because our industry does embrace the trendy, right?
Yes, it does.
And because we do that, there will be people who go, I mean, look, you had Modsy and Laurel and Wolf, and you had all of Home Polish, and you had all of those that are like, hey, we can do design and it's only $129 a room. But you're not getting you're getting a decorator list.
Right.
You're not getting a design.
You're getting, yeah, exactly. You're getting someone that's shopping for you, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
As you think about it, because of your background, because of sort of how you think, are you kind of ideating how this new technology will affect your design practice and how you will use it?
So I guess the short answer is no. I haven't really it's more like I'm in the information gathering phase. I'm trying to understand what technologies are out there, how other people are using it, how it's being used in other industries. Because, again, for me, I came from a different industry into this industry and took some of what I kind of felt like were the best practices from that industry and applied it to interior design. And so I think it's also just, I'm always looking at, different like trends and how other companies are using them or how other industries are using them. And I think that, time will tell. But I mean, to your point, I think it goes back to the active listening. Like, I don't know how you teach active listening and human empathy to a machine. I mean, I'm sure there are ways to program trigger words and certain things, but, for a client to be able to sit and explain to you how they live and how they use their home and their family and really understanding kind of like, I visualize myself being my client in the homes that we're designing for them. And that fuels the creative process for us and for me. And I don't think that a machine can do that.
You are listening to my conversation with Philadelphia-based designer Glenna Stone. We'll be right back. We are living at a time of incredible growth, both technologically and creatively, with respect to interior design, exterior design, and architecture. There is no question. There are companies thinking differently about the business of design and how to make products super serve those for whom they're being made. One of those companies, and one of my favorites, is Moya Living. Designer and fabricators of some of the most stunningly beautiful, incredibly durable, and highly functional kitchen,
bath, and outdoor kitchen cabinetry on the market today. Powder-coated steel with stunning lines, vibrant colors to fit any design style or aesthetic. A history of designing cabinetry for the scientific community. So you know it's been tested in some of the truly the most harsh conditions available. Moya O'Neill is the CEO and founder of Moya Living. She's the inspiration behind the design. Designers, their specification process is so simple. It will make your job so much easier. Check them out online through the socials at Moya Living, their website, moyaliving.com, and in the real world, their live kitchen showroom in Fountain Valley, California. Do you think that a machine can do that over time with enough data presented?
I mean, probably, right? I mean, it's like, I never want to say never, but I don't think, I think the question will be, could a machine do that and the output be acceptable to a potential client, right? I mean, I feel like having a designer do their work, I don't know, but I've always been amazed at certain things, but I feel like that process, going through that process and that journey and kind of having that human component to it produces a much better result than a machine ever could. So I think the question is, but could it be good enough, right? And like, what client would find that? There may be clients that would find that acceptable.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
It's a little scary.
Well, it is. I kind of lean to the other side of this, where it's not an attempt, as the websites were, to replace designers. I view it as an absolutely remarkable tool to allow designers to be better and to do their best work. I'll give you an example. With all of your clients and all of the things that you do during the day, it's just not possible for you to research product and discover and to go find new products. I was at KBIS this year, 1 million plus square feet of space with all of these vendors and manufacturers. And then you've got KBIS over here and IBS over here, and you got the floor covering show here. And then you've got Las Vegas Market over here. In a week, it's not possible to cover it. But as a designer, if you can get a version of ChatGPT or another AI source, and you can sort of input characteristics of your client and say what products, performatively can do this and aesthetically look like that, and it'll give you a list of, where there are thousands, it'll give you a list of a dozen or dozens. That's reasonable. Then you can reach out to those clients, or even have it done automatically, where then they send you samples, and you've saved so much time.
Right.
Can you see using that? Can you see that being of value?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's an excellent point. The information kind of like gathering or sourcing or getting information about certain things and having that kind of like research done by a computer instead of, a person in your office, that can be incredibly efficient. It's interesting. It's like every technology that comes out, it's thinking, how does that integrate into your business, and how does the industry or the business flex and adapt to it? It's probably somewhat similar to when AutoCAD, came into our lives, and the debate of hand drawing versus CAD drawings, and like that thing, and same things with renderings, right? And it's like, well, now renderings can be a super efficient tool to help a client visualize thing, and it can actually help you sell that room to that client, because they can't. So there's some people that just can't see it without the rendering, and it can be actually a very efficient sales tool.
So you're in Philly. What is the state of design and architecture like in Philly? And I will sort of preface the question with, I feel like between regional preferences, changing weather conditions, changing circumstances in a post-COVID world, changes in how we live and performatively what we expect of our dwellings now that we really may not have prior to 2020. What is the state of design? What are you being asked for that maybe you haven't been asked for before? What are some of the things that have changed in your view that are maybe universal that you have incorporated into the work that you do, that you see as not just a trendy item, but as something that is transforming the nature of the business?
So there's a couple things. I mean, health and wellness is really big. Whether it's gyms or studios, or we've done a couple meditation rooms in homes. So I think that there's just a greater focus on physical and mental wellness. And we just finished doing a SoulCycle inspired gym for our clients that moved out of Manhattan, had a weekend home in New Hope, kind of on the countryside, and ended up moving in there full time. And they were both kind of SoulCycle advocates. So we created this kind of SoulCycle inspired, workout studio for them. So I definitely think the health and wellness, and I mean, I think it's here to stay. I think that I almost feel like COVID kind of accelerated some trends that were probably already were in motion. And I think that's one of them. I also think kind of more casual living, kind of less formal spaces, that was kind of already starting. But then I think with the pandemic, people are really maximizing the use of every inch of their home and understanding how their home can, be used in flexible ways. And I think COVID accelerated that trend. I feel like that was kind of already happening. No longer is the living room that only gets used once a year, right? It's, how do we use all of these spaces for a variety of different situations that may occur in our house? And I think that is absolutely something that we're seeing here as well.
Do you have a punch list for what wellness design looks like, feels like, must include? So while everyone has their own individual requests and that affect them individually, are there some universals in wellness design?
Well, if you kind of look at it from a sustainability standpoint, I mean, in a home, indoor air quality is really important. So, one of the things that we always talk to our clients about are plants and plant life. We had a client that was looking at doing a kind of like a green living wall in their gym. We didn't end up moving forward with it, but we did a lot of research around it. And I think that that's a big component. Other than that, it's so individual, because like what health and wellness means to one person might be lifting weights and doing cardio and having machines, and wellness to somebody else might be a yoga mat and some pillows on the floor and being able to have meditation. So it's hard to have a prescription for that, because what we do is customize our designs to the way that people live and what they value and what's important to them. So that's very individualized, and it could be individual within a household, right? Like a husband could do X kind of exercising and wife could do Y exercising. And we have to figure out a way to make that work in one space and accommodate everybody's wish list.
Tell me about the kitchen. Something that I have been absolutely fixated on for quite some time is the kitchen, because one of the most rapidly we are in a kitchen renaissance right now. I mean, it is just absolutely stunning to me. I was talking about this recently with someone else, how growing up in LA and watching this idea of the kitchen, which, heart of the home, and then there's the outdoor kitchen, and the outdoor kitchen is in competition with the indoor kitchen for attention, because in LA you can be inside, outside,
Right.
equal time. And then just this massive explosion in secondary kitchens,
Yeah, exactly.
whether it's a dirty kitchen, strictly working kitchen, a kosher kitchen, or even the various offshoots, the scullery, the butler's pantry, even down to a wet bar or a coffee bar, or something that is so personal in nature, down to the weed bar. A designer. Yes, a designer. Do you have is there recreational use legal in Philly yet?
I think it's kind of legal. I don't know the rule. I don't follow it anymore because I feel like I can't keep up with it. It's always changing.
Yeah, but it's stunning, because you have medicinal on one side and then you have recreational on the other. Recreational is like LA and New York, where it's like, yeah, kitty bar the door. You can just go everywhere, buy weed everywhere, and you don't need a card.
Philadelphia is not quite like that.
Okay, so with many of these designers that I've spoken to, the idea of the weed room has taken the place of a cigar lounge in a home. So, you've got your air filtration, but you've also got your humidification, and you've got your, you've got a refrigerator, and you've got some other things there that make that experience more fulfilling. But it seems like the offshoot to the kitchen's just like having a moment. And I'm curious what you've seen and how that's manifested itself in your design and your work.
Sure. Obviously a condo in Philadelphia, we're not going to have these secondary spaces, but pretty much every other project in the suburbs does have some type of, and all of the above that you mentioned, at a minimum, some kind of like wet bar or dry bar. Beverage centers are we've seen a lot, whether it's, coffee or juicing or, things for the kids. And then there's the wine bars, and, and we were doing a space right now. We've got a massive kitchen. Then we have this like beverage kind of center. And then we have in their sunroom, we're doing like a whole kitchenette that leads to their pool. And that's where they're going to have popsicles for the kids and, beverage refrigerators and, everything. So I think with the advancement of all of these kind of smaller appliances like refrigerator drawers and under the counter, refrigeration solutions, that there's really an option to do it everywhere. I mean, we just did one in a primary bedroom, a whole coffee bar. It's like a mini kitchenette in their bedroom. So it is really growing.
It is. And, with that comes this approach. And again, I kind of want to draw back to your engineering background and the thought process. Insofar as, like I'm looking at your website and I'm looking at one of your projects, the New Hope farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this kitchen. There is so much going on here. I mean, the kitchen looks like it takes over 2 rooms. And by the way, so I do this all the time. So the folks, if you're listening to the show, go to the show notes and you can click on a link for glennastone.com and you can go to portfolio and see which projects we're actually looking at right now. But this New Hope farmhouse kitchen, I love this space. It's vast. It's big.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. It's so
yes.
Fantastic.
Take me through the process of designing this space. And with you, I kind of want to drill down a little bit further. I love kitchen designers and I love talking about kitchen design, because most of the performative value that goes into kitchen design aren't things that you necessarily see, but how they act and react, how clients rather act and react to where things have been placed and how they've been placed there and how you use them. So this one is just, it's big and it's broad. It looks like it's part of an open concept space as well. How did you navigate this? How did you put it together?
Right. Well, we spend a lot of time, especially, I mean, for all of our spaces, but really in a kitchen, it's a multi-layered process because we really understand, where in this particular case, they're, they had lived in this house, their kids were grown and out of the house, but came back a lot, with their significant others and spouses, and understanding, okay, so how do you use this kitchen? It's on a farm. They have, gardens, they cook a lot. So really understanding what type of kitchen is this? Is this a kitchen where people are actively cooking in every day? Is this a kitchen that you might, have a chef that's in and you come home and you kind of heat up meals? What types of activities are happening in this kitchen? That's kind of where we really start, kind of just foundationally, because I do think I always kind of tell people we can make the kitchen look beautiful, but it has to function for you. That's like the primary focus of a good kitchen design. And you're right. Behind all those cabinets are lots of things that you don't see, right? Like the pop-up stand mixer, and in the mirrored cabinet is a Miele built-in coffee bar with a pull-out countertop. So, it is like really understanding, how they use a kitchen. And then we start with appliances, because I think for me, that's the technology component that we have to incorporate into the kitchen. And that is so personal. I mean, we are not appliance experts, and we never advertise. We can say what things they should look at. And of course, we're up on the new appliances, but ultimately, we will walk our clients through that process to help select their appliances from a function standpoint. And we will work with them on different sizes and things that will work in the kitchen. And that's where we really kind of like just start laying out, where are the appliances? How do they fit into the space? In this particular kitchen, they actually wanted their main sink in their pantry that overlooks their farm. Because when they entertain, they didn't want to have all the dishes in the island. They didn't want to have this kind of like mound of things that were kind of sitting there to be cleaned up. So they put their main sink out of the way. And of course, then we, multiple dishwashers, and really kind of figuring out how they wanted this kitchen to function for them. So that's really kind of where we start. And then that's kind of like the first round or two. And then we really start putting our touches in terms of like the finishes and like the detailing of it. And while we're doing that, we're looking at the organizational components and how we can, hide things, or what cabinets need to contain, how are we gonna hold your spices, your oils, your, if, the big baker, all of your baking things. I mean, we've had requests for avocado station, like guacamole stations in kitchens. So, it's, so it's kind of, figuring out all those little nuances of what people kind of value in their kitchen and really truly need. And that's, to me, that's so exciting. I mean, that's why I think kitchen design never gets old, because you're always getting some new request, or you're always trying to figure out a way to make someone's life easier in the kitchen. And I love it when we have clients that really use their kitchen, because that makes it so much more meaningful for the work that we're doing. And they get so much joy, and we get so many, phone calls. Oh my God, this is amazing. Like we had our first dinner party, like this family in New Hope, like we had our first Christmas Eve. So that's where you really feel that you're impacting people's lives.
So tell me the difference, as you view it, between your residential work and your commercial work.
Mm-hmm. So I love them both for very different reasons. Our residential work, I do feel like, is more impactful to how people live. And it feels very, very rewarding in that regard. People are very emotionally tied to the project. There's definitely, more emotional triggers, certainly tied to the budget more. And sometimes less about the timeline, right? Like that, yes, they don't want this to drag on forever, but they're making an investment and they want it to be how they want it, right? And they want to love it. On the commercial side, oftentimes I think we, the biggest drivers are budget and time. And they're not in the kind of our commercial work, like they have other jobs, like they are working this is like part of their work is to do some type of like office renovation. And so they trust us to just get it done as long as it's on time and on budget. And, they're usually pretty happy because, of course, we're going to do beautiful work and we're going to meet their needs and we're going to have a process and it's going to go well. But so that's like very different. But at the same time, and we've had spaces where we've done for, wealth management firms, and we're actually in talks right now for another healthcare company. And, on my, initial meeting with them, kind of talking to their employees about what they love about their space and what they don't love about their space. And it's, you get to also impact people's lives in a different way when you're working in the commercial space. So.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it? It's a different vibe. And I was looking at, some of your commercial work. One of the commercial projects I was actually looking at is what you did for your own firm. Mm. So you designed your own studio. How are you for a client? Are you a good client?
Terrible. I'm completely out of process.
Yeah. All change orders, right?
Yeah, so many change orders.
When it came to designing your own firm, were you able to put into practice your own process? And did you look? I asked the question because I find that fascinating. We don't often have an opportunity to self-test. So I'm curious how that process worked for you.
Well, no, because here's the thing, like there was no process for this. It was just a little bit on the fly. Yes, there was a vision and yes, we had some drawings, but they probably weren't dimensioned as well as they should have been because I'm running a business and I don't necessarily have the time to do that. So no, it was awful. And then we took over the floor above us. And that, that was like a 1.5 year long renovation, still not quite done, but we're using the space that I'm sitting in now. So yeah, it's hard to fit in an office renovation into your, 7 to 9 p.m. job, right? So it doesn't necessarily look pretty, if I'm being honest, on the other side, but it looks pretty actually when you see it, but the process wasn't so pretty.
Look, and by the way, I think that's probably the best education you can get is putting oneself through that and having that be the process of self-discovery so that you can make the experience even better for those you serve.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. We're going through our own kind of renovation project now at our house. And that's been eye-opening, right? Because you really put yourself in the shoes of your clients and you understand, I understand the construction fatigue that happens to everybody, but it really, it's certainly real, and understanding that, that what our clients are going through and being able to have that empathy for what they're experiencing, because, I'm always like, you're going to love it on the other side. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we're here to help you, but it's real. It is definitely real.
The struggle is real. The design struggle is real. Glenna, this was so great. I love this conversation. I really appreciate the time. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. I love talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I listen to it all the time. I listened to your Aiden one about AI. So I was wondering, I'm like, am I going to get an AI question? But
you did.
Yeah, I did. So
thanks, Glenna.
Thank you so much.
Design Hardware's newly remodeled showroom is where you will find a gallery-style space with a thoughtful display of products, purposefully positioned to allow unbridled exploration and discovery. High-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware selections are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find your inspiration. collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your shopping list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Glenna. Loved our chat and truly appreciate the time. Thank you, Convo by Design partners and sponsors, Thermosol, Moya Living, and Design Hardware. You make this show possible, and I truly appreciate you. Speaking of appreciation, thank you for listening, subscribing, and downloading the show. Without you, I mean, seriously, what's the point? Please keep sharing this little podcast entering our 11th year with some truly fun things in store over the coming weeks and months. But please share it, because that's how we find new listeners. Did you catch our first episode of Drinking About Design recently? We're drinking and telling stories about design. You're going to love this. Make sure you check it out. You can find more in the show notes. On the way, you will hear more episodes of Drinking About Design, in addition to some very special Convo by Design episodes coming your way. Thanks for listening. Until next week, be well and take today first.